And now, from the Marquee Media Studio inside Mark Tank, it's the Mark Haney Show.
Yes, this is the Mark Haney Show, and we are on a mission to ignite the entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown we love, and it's coming together much in part of because the Backyard Advantage is coming together. And the Backyard Advantage really is this tribe of people that get it and they want to help, right? It's this tribe of people that understand that entrepreneurs are the heroes of the American economy and they want to help entrepreneurs. So they're putting their money where their town is. They're putting their resources, their time, their effort, their ingenuity toward helping their fellow entrepreneur. And it's beginning to work. And at the heart of this effort is love. And so today on the show, we are going to be talking to a guy that is part of that effort. He is Chris Horton. He is the CEO and Global Director of strategic initiatives for the National Black Entrepreneurs Project. And so he's helping entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes with a focus on helping Black, and then many times they're the ones that are the most underserved. So we're going to hear that story today. And then we're also going to hear in that interview, you're going to hear him share a story that I wasn't expecting about tragedy. And you need to hear that because it made me stop and think, and kind of like why some people deal with tragedy in a more positive way and others, we really struggle with it a lot longer. Maybe we never are able to quite overcome something really horrific happening in our life. And so that I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show a little bit and give you my perspective. And I've had some tragedies, so I'll be speaking from a position of somebody who has dealt with some tragedy of my own. But before we get to that, we have this really exciting thing that is happening right here on our show, and it is Jay Ezell. Right, Jay Ezell, he was on the show not long ago, and he's a part of the Backyard Advantage as well. And you know, you think about if you're gonna excel, you need Jay Ezell, right? He is the founder of Natoma Wealth Management, and I think we all have to plan to excel. It's going to happen if we don't give up. It's going to happen eventually, and as we excel and are building our companies become worth a lot of money. So how do you maximize that? What are you going to do when your company really makes it? How are you going to deal with it? You might want to sell your company. You're going to be creating some wealth. You're going to have it be in a position to have freedom in your life, maybe for the first time in a long time, because we know that owning a business at the beginning, you don't have a lot of freedom. Your freedom's gone. Typically, it's much more difficult than having an ordinary job. Well, let's plan on winning. And so for the next several weeks, Jay, at the beginning of the show, is going to share nuggets about what you want to do to plan to excel. Because if you're going to excel, you need Jay Ezell. Stick around. What is the value of my business, and what's the best way to position it for sale?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the exercises that most owners aren't necessarily going through every day. Not thinking about, from our perspective, what we hear a lot is it's more of a lifestyle entity, right? It creates an income stream that they can live, support their family, do all these things, and then give back the passion that they have for the business to the community that they serve. But it's very rare to find an owner that at some point is saying, hey, I'm going to stop and pause for a second and say, what's the equity value of the business? And that's super meaningful as people either think through the idea of exit. I'm aging out. I've been running for 25 years. And my wife is telling me I got to slow down a little bit. How do I think about what it's actually worth? Or to your point earlier, if there's an unsolicited knock on the door and somebody says, hey, we've heard and seen lots of great things. We want to talk about maybe an acquisition. And so going through that exercise of, a formal process of saying, here's all the assets of the business, here's the enterprise value, the goodwill, all those things, very, very meaningful process to go through, just to give yourself as an owner the idea of, okay, here's what it might be worth. What are the next steps to go through an exercise of saying, okay, do I sell internally? Is there an interest in that? Is it better to look outside? And then what sort of strategic partner makes the most sense internally within the organization, with management or employees, or looking at strategic buyers on the outside?
And I'm here with Chris Horton. He is the CEO and Global Director of Strategic Initiatives for the National Black Entrepreneurs Project. And he's also the founder of an executive director at Extending a Helping Hand. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Well, I want to find out a little bit about you and what you're working on. Tell us about this project.
Yeah. Extending a Helping Hand is a nonprofit that we launched. It came out of the birth of something that we called the Inclusivity Project. I used to be the regional lending manager for Northern California Small Business Development Center. That's one of SBA's resource partners that provide technical assistance for small businesses. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we realized that marginalized, socially, economically disadvantaged small businesses were having difficulty getting disaster relief assistance. And we launched the Inclusivity Project. We wanted to focus specifically on what I noticed out of the Oakland area, the Black and African American entrepreneur. And so we wanted to, we took a look internally at the SBDC and said, hey, we need to be more engaged and more present in the minority community. Being African American myself, I said, hey, I want to take the lead in the Black and African American community. My leadership embraced that. So we launched the Inclusivity Project. We have 4 key matrix, which was to invite 1,000 Black and African American entrepreneurs into our ecosystem. We wanted to help connect them to $100 million in small business financing. We wanted to start 100 new Black and African American owned businesses, and we wanted 50% of that work to be Black and African American women owned businesses. And so when we look,
does that make it more challenging?
What part?
The part to have 50% of them be women.
Oh,
because the statistics show that less women are entrepreneurs by and large than men.
I think that may be an old statistic.
Okay.
Yeah. Because especially during the pandemic, Mark, you really saw a lot more women because they were already at home that now had to take, and their significant other lost their job or was no longer in the workforce. And so women took an initiative and a proactive approach to say, hey, let me get in the workforce. And you're starting to see a lot more attention given by corporate America and the business community to embrace women business owners and women leadership, because some statistics out there show that businesses that are either owned or led by women are outperforming the male counterpart.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I can see that. My wife outperforms me every day. So, and I do see that within the teammates because, a lot of times women are very good at organizing things and getting, right. I know I'm generalizing, but right. I see that.
Yeah,
so that's cool that it's bearing out.
Well, you think about it this way, Mark. If we are as smart as we say we are, and if statistics are showing that women entrepreneurs and women business owners and organizations led by women are performing and outperforming, then why wouldn't you put time and effort in supporting that and embracing that? And so I was fortunate enough to meet an organization that made it easy for me to meet that number. And the organization is called the National Association of Women Business Owners. Okay. And then at the SBDC, NABO,
mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so it makes it easy to hit that number. And so when you look back at the work that we did with the Inclusivity Project, we had over 2,600 folks come into our ecosystem through a relationship we have with NorCal Financial Development Corporation, which is part of the governor's Small Business Loan Guarantee Program. We were averaging about $125 million in small business financing. And then we had over 360 business starts. And that was in a number of different stages: ideation stage, actually starting a business, or on the road to starting a business. And you had 48% of that work, Mark, be done with Black and African American women.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of interrupted you as you were talking about the pillars. Did you get through?
That was it right there. And that's how the Extending a Helping Hand came about, because we had some strategic partners, primarily the Milken Institute. Gene Cornelius there recognized the work that we were doing and thought that the work we were doing shouldn't be just in Northern California, because the SBDCs are broken up into geographical territories. And so that's why we launched the national nonprofit Extending a Helping Hand, because there are other pockets and cities across the country that can benefit.
Yeah, help me remind me here. The SBDC is that's a government agency. It's part of the Small Business Association. So you're not actually part of that. This nonprofit spun out of that?
It came out of that,
Okay.
absolutely. Because again, my responsibility, my geographical territory is the 36 northernmost counties in California, starting in Santa Cruz. You go up the coast to the Oregon border, over into Stockton, San Joaquin, up to the Nevada border. But with some of these larger organizations that appreciate and wanted to embrace the work we were doing, wanted to take it nationally. So we had to pivot and start something independent of SBA so that I could take it across the country.
Okay, and so the Milken Institute is one of your primary funders?
Is the primary, not funder, but a primary stakeholder.
Stakeholder.
Absolutely. And what that means is the connection to organizations that can help fund the work that we're doing. And so we're in the process of getting our 501c3 status. Once we get that 501c3 status, we have some stakeholders through the Milken Institute that are interested in funding the work that we're doing.
Wow. So this is an entrepreneurial endeavor.
It is.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So in making that switch, what's the emotion in terms of switching from, working for the SBDC to now launching something from scratch?
Right. Well, the emotion is excitement, Mark. I am thrilled every day when my alarm clock go off to get up and do the work that I get the opportunity to do. When you think about advancing marginalized communities, when you think about low to moderate income communities, when you think about folks that are underrepresented, the opportunity that you get to make an impact in people's quality of life. We believe, myself, my board, my stakeholders, my advisory council, we believe that entrepreneurship is a pathway out of poverty. So imagine what that can do for communities when you can reduce or address poverty in a community. It makes it more of a place where we can all live, work, and play and raise our families.
Well, how much of it is education? I was at an event. I'm invested into a couple of funds that focus on, one's called Black Capital and the other is Black Star Capital. And the two guys that run each of those organizations are phenomenal. And I was just talking to Kwame Anku about, you know Kwame?
I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Kwame, he wanted me to talk about what successes we're finding. But at a different event that I was at, I noticed a lot of Black African-American people that we're probably lacking access to some of the, I guess what I might see as some of the basics around venture capital and, how to get a business funding. And so Kevin Johnson was running that event, and it was just eye-opening for everybody there, especially me, that information just is not out there as much.
Right.
Are you finding that education's a big component of the work you're doing?
Absolutely. My board and I, we came up with this recipe for success, and success can be measured in a number of different ways. So we use that broadly, but the ingredients in this recipe for success, first and foremost, is awareness. You're absolutely right. People need to know where to go, what's out there, who can I trust, who can I talk to, and feel that there's a safe place to go to. And I say we because I grew up in poverty, right? My mom had a third grade education, and if I didn't learn it at school, I wasn't going to get learned. And my mom taught me how to survive. That's what she taught me. But as far as understanding budget, understanding needs and wants, understanding how to invest, understanding all of these sort of things, if you're not exposed to it, then sometimes we feel a little embarrassed to go and ask for help and raise our hand, right? And so that limits some of us from being able to get access, which is the second ingredient. So we raise awareness, then we create access. We give you a pathway, where to go, who to talk to, people that you can trust that are going to not be judgmental of you. The third ingredient is exactly what you're talking about, education. So we raise awareness, we provide you access, and then we educate you on the pros and cons, the good, the bad. How is it going to benefit you? How would it hurt you? And last and most important is application. Now that we've raised your awareness, we've given you access and sent you where to go get the assistance. We've educated you on the assistance and the tools and resources that you need. Now we want to hold you accountable to make certain that you apply what you've been taught.
Can you give me like an example of an entrepreneur or small business person that has gone through the program and it's beginning to make a difference for them?
Oh, absolutely. You know what? It's great that you asked that, because on my drive up, I received this email. So there's a lady named Michelle, and she launched a small business, and she was actually at the beginning of the Inclusivity Project. Her and a partner wanted to launch a business, but she was having difficulty, didn't know where to go, didn't know how to get. She heard me at some speaking event for the Inclusivity Project when we first launched, reached out to me. We had a fact-finding conversation. Where are you? What you're interested in doing? What product or service? Who's your target market? gave her some homework. And I said, I want you to go and write down the top 5 priorities that you think you need to do to move forward. And then I want you to do that also personally with what top 5 goals or obstacles are you addressing. From that, we then connected her with an actual SBDC advisor that was able to help her with a business plan. So gave her a template. She did the drafting of it, came back, got critiqued on it, feedback, make adjustments and edits. And then she came back and said, now I'm ready to seek some startup financing. So we got her connected with NorCal Financial Development Corporation. And Sanford and his team over there got her plugged in with a micro lender. She was able to go through that process, wasn't able to be successful at securing that financing, but we got some great feedback and was able to work on some things to make her bankable. Then there was a grant called the Dream Fund that came out from the California Office of Small Business Advocate, Director Gray's office. And she was able to get that grant funding. So that was the seed funding. So I knew about it because the SBDC, we were administering it. So what I did was I did a blast email to everybody that was in the ecosystem to say, this is coming. Be prepared. Here's what you need to do. Michelle was one of the ones that did that. She went through the 8 hours of training. She got the grant funding. That started it. Now she was able to progress to where now she is able to get the small micro loan. And she just texted me and said, I want to thank you. Let me know where I can write a recommendation, because it's because of you. It's because of the programming. It's because of the tools. It's because of the resources, the introductions you made to people to help me and my partner along the way.
What kind of business is it?
Michelle's doing, it's cosmetics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's going to be like an online store?
She does do online as well.
So,
yeah. Okay.
So that's interesting that, this is, in the Growth Factory, I think you're familiar with the Growth Factory, and I've been investing into small businesses for the last several years, and I'll invest into Main Street companies like restaurants, construction, stuff like that, or what I'll think of as more like tech companies that are going out to attract more venture capital. And then we launched the Growth Factory, and it's strictly focused more on tech-based type of companies that are likely to want to go get more venture capital versus banking right off the bat. So that's kind of where I would draw the line. Are you focused more on what I would consider Main Street companies, or are there tech companies that might be looking for venture capital as well?
Yeah, so we partner with a number of different VC organizations, Boss Capital, Pitch Global, the Carlson Center. And so I leverage them. One of the things that I've learned, Mark, is, I don't need to be the jack of all trades, but I do want to surround myself with people that are smarter than me in their capacity and leverage that. And I feel that I can get more accomplished that way. So me and my team, we're really focused on the micro and mini micro businesses. We're really, 2 layers below small business, because I think that group gets overlooked. Everyone talks about small business. So when you're talking about, one owner operator or one owner operator and 1 or 2 family members running a business, a mom and pop owner operator, we really are focusing there. We are open to helping anyone. If you, again, extending a helping hand. If you need help, you can come to us and we're happy to help out. But we really want to get to that core group of folks that many folks and many organizations overlook. So, ideation, let's get you with a mentor, let's get you with an advisor to crystallize this idea that you have that you can monetize a product or service. And then let's lay out a roadmap. We talk about building this ecosystem from the ground up that can support the entrepreneurial spirit. And so that's really what we're focused on.
Okay, that's great. So in that realm, these companies you said some of them are startups, so they have probably no revenue. Maybe you haven't even built out their product. And then some of them probably have a product and maybe making a few sales, but now you got to get them some financing to grow it a little bit.
Right. And what we've done there is we've partnered with Boss Capital, and Boss Capital have been generous, and they created a platform for us, and the platform is called Startup Science Academy. It's a platform that has vignettes that we believe is a successful track for someone that just launched a new business to be able to grow, scale, and if there's the desire there, to exit that business within 3 to 5 years.
One of the reasons I think the main reason I started this show was to tell stories about winning in entrepreneurship, to inspire people to consider entrepreneurship or consider, that person built a really successful company, mine's small, maybe I should try to build mine a lot bigger. And hopefully, I was hoping, when I hear those type of stories, they inspire me to dig in a little deeper and do a little bit more. I'm wondering, within the Black community, are there those stories or people that can be shared that people look up to? And who are those? Because I have several friends that are very successful Black entrepreneurs, and I'm wondering, do those stories get told to the people that you're working with?
They do. It really depends on each individual organization that's providing technical assistance or support to, any minority group, but specifically we're talking about Black and African American. And so, when I look at the Black Chamber of Commerce, when I look at, the Northern California Black Chamber Presidents Association, you have organizations like that definitely share those success stories. Okay. You have organizations like Northern California SBDC, where they share success stories on the website and within certain communities in newsletters. So yeah, absolutely. Could it be done more? Absolutely. I think so.
Yeah. It's got to be inspiring, because you want the access to even know it's possible. Oh, a guy or gal that looks like me built that. Okay. Maybe that means I can do it too.
Absolutely.
And, I feel like that's a big part of it. Yeah. The basics of how to get there, but to realize that this is America. Anybody can do it.
Absolutely.
So with trends, are you seeing certain trends that are good or bad in terms of the kind of work you're doing?
I wouldn't say that I'm seeing any trends. I am hearing more organizations that want to focus on the minority communities and want to, put some emphasis there. I am hearing, quite a bit of conversation about supporting women businesses of all ethnic groups. I am hearing a lot more about supporting our veteran entrepreneurs as well. So yeah, I'm hearing some things like that.
Well, that's interesting. Now, so some people that listen to the show know that we have an organization that focuses on veterans as well. And so we've helped a few veterans become entrepreneurs as part of, them getting out of the military. Now, when you say, is that a part of your focus, or is it more just Black and African American?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, extending a helping hand has no boundaries. It does. We're colorblind. You just close our eyes, have another human being that is has an opportunity, has barriers or hurdles or obstacles. We're here to help you, right? When you talk about extending a helping hand, we have 5 mission priorities. So remember, our focus is addressing poverty, and we believe, that entrepreneurship is that pathway out of poverty. So we have 5 mission priorities. So first is the Black and African American community. Next is the Native American community. Next is our Hispanic and Latinx community. Next would be our LGBTQ community. And then next would be the Asian American community. Since I started the work with the Inclusivity Project in the Black and African American community, we launched the National Black Entrepreneurs Project to go national with that work. We want to perfect it. And it's not going to be perfect, but we want to deal with the hurdles. We want to come up with the challenges and be able to then take that and be able to duplicate that in the other mission priority areas.
Okay, so as a Black business person, in Oakland, there's a lot of Black people in Oakland. I live in Placer County. There's less. So somebody that we're already intimidated, I suppose, as aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are just getting started. When we walk into a room of maybe more successful entrepreneurs, it can be a little bit intimidating because we don't know what we're doing. But I have to imagine, as a Black small business entrepreneur, and you walk into a group of people that are, more white than maybe Black, and what's the emotion for that person? And I want to put myself, I want to gain an understanding of like what I can do to make sure that I'm more welcoming, or just have a better sense as to what that person might be feeling.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's going to be all over the place, and it's really going to, I think when you think about something like that, Mark, you have to take into account the path in which that particular individual has traveled. Everyone hasn't traveled the same. Just because we're Black doesn't mean we all went through the same life and upbringing, right? And so it really is going to depend on that individual. But, some folks may walk into that room and may be intimidated. Some folks may walk into that room and be very encouraged because they are very confident in who they are, what they have gone through, right? And what they bring to the table. So it really is going to depend. So it's not one way I can answer the question other than I don't know everyone's path and everyone's road that they've traveled. So I don't know, but it can be a mix of emotions walking into the room. And I really think it's, in all fairness, to not represent the Black community one way. Yeah. It depends on the road that you've traveled.
Okay. Well, that you make a great point. That's what I've seen too. I have several Black friends, they don't seem intimidated and they're successful. And not that they should be, but I just know how I feel sometimes when I walk into a room where, I don't know anybody, and it's, I'm the odd man out a little bit.
Well, that's been the bulk of my career. That I've been the odd man out. In banking, I was probably the only one on the only diverse person on the team. I remember when I first became a president CEO of a chamber in Silicon Valley, I was the first bit of diversity in that chamber. I know when I go to a lot of meetings, I'm the only African American or person of ethnicity in that. I remember when we launched the Inclusivity Project, I was one of a handful of us internally, and that was what motivated us to say, my leadership to say, you're absolutely right. We need to be more reflective internally as well as outward in the community.
So what inspired you, say early on, to take this career path? Are there things that happened maybe in childhood, some things that made you want to go a certain way in life?
Well, I knew I never wanted to be in poverty again, first and foremost. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, raised on Galveston Island outside of Houston, Texas. Very poor upbringing, poor in material and quality of life, but loved. Okay. There was no doubt that I was loved. My sisters and my nieces were all loved. Love was not an issue. It was just monetary, being able to have a certain quality of life. So I knew I never wanted to be there again, and I knew I wanted to do anything and everything I could and take control of myself, being able to not live in poverty or ever be there again. And so that was about it. I left the island. I was left as to pursue an athletic career. And then once I got done with that, I wasn't done with it, but what I was pursuing at the time had come to a conclusion. I was running track, and I was trying to go to the 92 Olympics in Barcelona in track and field. Whoa. And I didn't make the team, didn't qualify. And so then I decided to go to college, came out to California. I went to school down in Santa Barbara. Then I moved up to Marin County. And then when we got pregnant with my oldest daughter, Taya, her mom was from Napa, generations from Napa. And she's like, I'm not leaving. You're moving over here. So then I went there. But to fast forward, this work that I'm doing right now, it really came about from the COVID-19, working with NorCal Financial Development Corporation, being a hub to help with access to the SBA EIDL. So we were designated as a location. My team and I were helping about 400 to 500 small businesses during the pandemic get access and answer questions and get through the whole ordeal. Then you fast forward, or before you even fast forward, I'm identifying the struggles that many minorities were having, how the business was structured, how they were handling their finances, not being computer savvy and tech savvy, and being able to navigate the websites and stuff like that. So that started okay, we got to help. Now, during that time, Mark, I came across a census survey that said at the beginning of the pandemic in mid-February, there were more than 1 million Black and African American owned businesses in the country. Okay. By mid-April, 6 weeks, 440,000 shut their doors permanently. Oh, wow. That's where it started. Yeah. Because I was like, okay, we're the SBDC. We cover every county across the country. How could these businesses, and we're helping SBA administer it. How could 440,000 not know to call your local SBDC to get help to help you survive? So that's where it really started. And that's when I shared that with my leadership. We got to do something about this here. I know I can't bring back 440,000, but at least in Northern California, I can do my part there. Fast forward now, you have the George Floyd situation.
Oh, yeah.
And now you got this social and racial unrest going on around the country. And again, SBDC is the largest business consulting firm in the country. Let's leverage our platform. Let's be first responders. Let's be engaged in the community. Let's calm some of this noise. And that further accelerated. And then my leadership just embraced and said, yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. We can take a proactive approach here in Northern California to supporting minority businesses.
That's great. Something you said earlier caught my attention. I'm always intrigued by people that reach the highest level in any part of life. You were obviously a track star. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that. Maybe there's a nugget we can take away in your journey to become a great runner. Mm-hmm. I assume were you a sprinter, or were
I am
you
a sprinter.
Distance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you are. Still are. Are you still racing?
I still compete. Yes, I'm on the master's level.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. How old are you?
I'm 53.
You're kidding me. Okay.
Not at all, my friend.
Okay, so you still So how fast you run the 100?
I don't run the 100. I'm a 400 and 800 meter runner. Okay. I run about 44.5 in the 400, and I run about a 145 in the 800, the half mile.
Wow. Okay. So it would, like, back in the day, what was your best time?
Yeah, back in the day, low 44s.
Okay.
In
You're
the
still
400.
right in there
I'm still there. I'm still there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, sir. I thank God every day. I love it.
So being that, that's world class, right? Even
It
for
is.
masters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Oh, yeah.
and you're almost make the Olympics. You're still world class in running and track
Mm-hmm.
right now. What causes you internally to have that kind of drive? Where does
Sure.
that come from? Maybe, like, we all want to know how to win. Like,
Right.
where do you find that desire?
Sure. Well, it's real easy. Listen, 1976, my dad and I grew up with a family that we went fishing every Saturday. It was an absolute thing. That's what Saturday was. We got up at 4:00, got our fishing gear together, went out to the jetties on Galveston Island, and we fished all day. We got home. My dad and I would go outside. I'd gut the fish. My dad would fillet the fish. My sister would come out, take it in the house. My mom and her would cook it up in the kitchen, and we'd have dinner. That was every Saturday. Sunday was family day. We went to church, and we came home, and we spent the day together. That's where it started, because I was in the second grade, and I was going to school at Morgan Elementary School, and we had something in Texas, at least on Galveston Island, we have something called the Elementary Olympics in May towards the end of the school year, and all the elementary schools on the island would all come together and we'd all compete. And we had, like the 50-yard dash, the shuffle run, the standing broad jump, the softball toss, all of that stuff. And I was in the second grade, and I jumped in this race. There was this race happening, and I jumped in this race, outran everybody. It turned out to be all the fifth graders.
And you're in second?
And I was in second. So the teacher sent me to the principal's office. I got in trouble because I wasn't supposed to be in there. I was not where I was supposed to be. But the trouble I got in, Mark, was the principal gave me a permission slip to take it home to my mom to ask if I could run in the Elementary Olympics. So that's where my running started. 1976, and like I said, we went fishing every Saturday. But one Saturday a year during the summer, my dad and I, we would just go out, just he and I, just the guys. And I was 6 years old. We went out. We had a boat accident. My dad drowned, saving me. But prior to that, we had watched the 76 Summer Olympics. And my dad turned to me and said, I'd love to see my son run in the Olympics one day. That's where it started. I was on this drive and this pursuit. And, we had this story written up about that, and it's called Run It Till It Rains. And the Run Until It Rains story is I was on this pursuit to achieve Olympic success. Now, remember, my dad said he just wanted to see me run in it. Well, I took it to another level. I wanted to win a medal, right? And so Run It Till It Rains is that I will continue running in pursuit of the Olympics until that day I'm standing on the awards podium. They put a medal around my neck, and it starts to rain. The rain is my dad's tears in heaven because he's seen his son accomplish what he wanted to. That's my drive. That's it.
Can you still make the Olympics?
I'm sure an individual could. That's not in my agenda.
That's not your that was the agenda.
That was
now
the agenda.
Agenda's,
just stay fit, enjoy the sport. I love it. Continue competing as long as God will allow me to.
So how old were you when your dad died?
I was 6.
And he's trying to save you.
He did save me. The boat was on top of my head. I was wearing the life jacket. Motor came off the back of the boat, cut my dad's arm off. Oh. He lifted the boat off my head, floated away. That was the last time I saw him until the next day when they found him. And because I was the last person to see him alive, I had to identify the body.
Was it just you two on the boat?
It's just us two. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you think about things that shape your life.
Right.
That's
absolutely.
Obviously, I'm sure devastating, but it's made you who you are too.
It definitely has. And it gives me the drive every day to do what I do. If you're authentic and true to yourself, and like my mom said, find something that doesn't feel like work. And if you put good energy out in the universe will always take care of you. And I am living my very best life.
Congratulations. Okay, so a couple more questions here. Okay, to still be able to, 400 meters and 800 meters, right? You could sprint 100 yards, probably in the 50s, and you're not going to get that tired. You can be tired at the end. You can run hard for 10 or 15 seconds, or however long it takes you to get down the mat or down the track. But 400 meters, you're getting tired before the 400 meters is up, and you have to have great cardio, in my opinion, in order to run hard. You run it in 45 seconds, which I think my fastest time ever was even like in high school or whatever, it was like 60 seconds, right? So yeah, I know it is embarrassing, but I was fast too, right? In my high school. Anyway, so you've got to have incredible lung capacity to do that. So how do you train on that?
Yeah. So to not give away too much of it, but when you run the 400, you run the 400 and you run two segments. You run two 200s, and most athletes run, a first 200 is faster than the second 200.
Right.
And so my coach and we work on doing negative splits. So, I want my first 200 to be my slowest and my second 200 to be my fastest. Most people hit the wall at 300 meters. And so when you're coming off that curve, that's where you start to see the shoulders tighten up. People start to tense up. The neck gets tight. The arm carry comes down. But at the elite level, that's where you're taught to relax and to have, real high arm carry, because the high arm carry lifts the knees up. The higher the knees are, the elongated stride that you're going to get. And so that's what we attempt to do. Now, I am able to maintain that strength because I do a lot of crazy things, Mark. I go all the way up from the 400 all the way up to ultra marathon running. Okay. In 2002, I did a fundraiser for the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and I raised $2,000-$3,000. I can't remember because it's been a minute, but I raised whatever the funding requirement was, and it got me entry into the Honolulu, Hawaii. So I was married at the time, wanted to go on a vacation, so I'm gonna do this fundraise. It's for something good like AIDS Foundation research, and I get to go to Hawaii, get to run a marathon. So it's my first time. Fell in love with the marathon, with the distance running community. So started running marathons, and then a friend of mine introduced me to an ultra marathon, is where you run 100 miles. I am not a fan of the wilderness, and so I'm not running point to point. So we found this thing called Rendezvous down in Morgan Hill. And there's a 2-mile track, and we have 32 hours to complete 100 miles. Okay. And so that's where I got into ultra.
You like being on the track more than
I'm not
around the American River or something.
Hey, it's going to be dark, and the bear, mountain lion, anything come out, I'm okay with that, man. We didn't have that on the island. But because of a lot of the stuff that I do, Mark, the 800 is my main event. I go up to the 1500. I can come down to the 400. Typically, you're going to find me running an 8 and a 1500 combination at a track meet. I run the 400 on a 4x400 meter relay team. I run for a distance running club called the Tamapo Runners over in Marin County. And so we do a lot of crazy things. We do a lot of hill training. We wear a weight jacket. We wear thigh trainers as well for the entire workout.
Yeah.
The entire workout.
Thigh, is that some kind of thigh training? Is that kind of weights?
It's a belt that has weights that go around your thigh.
I started running with recently, within the last couple months, with ankle weights.
Okay.
5-pound ankle weights.
Okay.
And you get pretty dang tired with ankle. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so I thought that that resistance kind of training might be good for running. Okay, so I've taken us off course a little bit with your running, but I'm really intrigued by people that find greatness somewhere. Okay, just maybe final question as we think about the people that might be listening, what else they need to know. Maybe there's a way that they might be thinking about wanting to get in touch with you. Sure. Or just understanding more about what you do.
Sure. I mean, I tell folks, I'm like a convenience store, Mark. I'm always open to be able to help someone, to be able to guide someone, point someone in the right direction. So, folks can either go to our website, which is extendingahelpinghand.org. Folks are happy to call me directly. I literally give my cell phone number out. So my cell phone number is 408-823-2660. And the number one thing I can tell folks, entrepreneurs are not, that there are resources out there for folks, that if I can at least be a resource in getting you connected or pointing you in the right direction, it doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be my organization. One of my partners is an organization called Opportunity Knocks. And there we help folks in every capacity, battered women, you need childcare, you need legal services, you need food, you need housing. We really want to take a holistic approach to supporting folks that need help. And we all need help with something at some point in our lives. And, don't let pride get in the way of preventing you from, reaching out and saying, I could use some help or I can use some guidance.
Don't let pride get in the way. Love it. Words of wisdom. Appreciate you coming on the show, Chris, and sharing your story. And glad to know you.
Hey, same here, Mark. Thank you so much.
You bet. Welcome back to the Mark Haney Show, and you're reflecting back on today's discussion with Chris Horton. It truly is a guy that has pulled himself up by his bootstraps and built. He became a world-class athlete, which is quite ironic knowing that he had this tragedy. Maybe ironic's not even the right word. Quite inspiring. When you hear about a guy that had this kind of tragedy as a child, and then you see him not only giving back now to entrepreneurs and helping entrepreneurs, but he's become a world-class athlete. So it's interesting to me to think about why that happens, right? Many of you have had tragedies in your life. Some of you may not have had them yet, but they're coming. They come. It's part of life. And you're going to need to be dealing with tragedies all our life. But why do some people end up dealing with those tragedies in a way that makes them stronger? Why do some people end up being able to take those tragedies and transfer the meaning of those tragedies into something really meaningful for them in their life and actually find a way to succeed? So I've thought about that in my life a little bit. So I'm going to share a couple of thoughts on that for me. And I've had a few tragedies, but the one, if I was thinking back to what's the toughest thing I've ever gone through in my life, it's when my mother got sick. And so I'm mid-20s, 26, 27. We are in the process of closing the transaction. My brothers and I are buying out my parents' TV shop that turned video stores. And my mom, we're kind of celebrating this whole transaction. And it's on New Year's Eve. It's New Year's Eve. And my mom can't celebrate because she's got this really bad headache. And it's like, wow, what are we going to do? Mom's got a bad headache. So it wasn't really quite the celebration, but, we go off, and 2 days later, my mom's in the hospital. She's in a coma. She has brain surgery, and it's a brain aneurysm. They go in, clip it, do the surgery, and she's in a coma for an extended period of time. I think it was 30 to 60 days. She gets her last rites. It's basically your mom's going to die. And I'm devastated. My mom had been my mentor, my best friend, and it was just horrible. And so I was saddened, and I started thinking about it. So today, that was a long time ago, but at some point I had to do something with that to make it, I guess, turn into something that made me stronger. And so I started thinking about what I did, and so I made a list of things that I began to do. And because I was close with my dad as well, but my dad got cancer right after that, and he ends up going away. So basically my mom is in an old folks home because after she woke up from the brain surgery and was like a child. Ultimately she had to teach herself how to eat and drink and all that. So she was my mom was like a child that whole time. So my little brother and I, we ended up buying out my older brother's share of the video stores, and he and I became extremely close. And I think that's what my takeaway from that is we got to acknowledge the tragedy, give ourselves time enough to be sad. And we did. But I surrounded myself with my brother and my wife, and I had this really cool support system. So I think the number one thing that we need to do is acknowledge that this is bad. And number two, we have to put people in our lives that are going to help us get through it. And if you haven't built that support system yet, it's good to have that ahead of the time. And luckily I did, but it strengthened for sure when my mom got sick. And my brother and I set goals. And I think that was a huge part of trying to turn this sad, tragic thing into something positive. You just end up setting goals. Set goals for our family. We set goals for our business. And, those kind of things are things that you can rely on that. You can't rely on what you had, so you've got to create something new. And I think those goals helped drive us. And, because we can't wallow, right? I spent some time wallowing in the pain, but we can't wallow forever. right? We can't wallow forever. So we got to acknowledge it. We got to have the right people. We got to set goals, and we got to make sure we don't wallow. And, I think one of the things too that happened for me, and I think it happened for Chris as well, but I grew up. I think I was a child until my mom got sick. So it really forced me to think about, I no longer have my mommy. And then eventually, not there long after, I didn't have my daddy either, even though I'm in my 20s, late 20s. I had to grow up. And so I think we have to grow up. I mean, I think growing through this is, if you don't end up growing up over the tragedy and finding a way to grow through it, then I think you're one of those people that maybe never gets over it. And, so I would encourage you to think about how you might be able to grow from the tragedy. And I think for me, that means being a learner, a lifelong learner. Here I am, turned 60 the other day, and I am, I'm discovering artificial intelligence and all these different things that tie back to my goals. And I think I've been that person that had that self-discovery sort of gene anyway. And so for me, the what we can learn most is about ourselves. But I think being a learner helps us from maybe dwelling on the past and not getting over it. But if we can keep learning and bringing in new information, that can be enormous. And the other thing that I think that we've got to do is we've got to start taking action, because these actions actually create changes. So if we take positive actions in our life, that's what I did. I mean, we built some video stores. Great. Well, we all know what happened in the business of the video store industry. We pivoted. We took action. We didn't sit there and just let the business die. We pivoted. We took action. We grew another business and almost went out of business, but made a lot of horrible business decisions, but we took action, right? I think when we sit back and do nothing for too long, that can be a major challenge to recovery. So take action, learn from it. And then for me, and I think this is what Chris Horton was saying too, for me, some of it's about giving back. And as he's giving back to the entrepreneurial community, and I'm working to give back to the entrepreneurial community, it ends up being a feeling that makes you feel good, right? So if you give, when we give to other people, it makes us feel good. That is like, you get this dopamine rush when you are helping other people. There's nothing like it. And you might not feel that, but you might not know that yet, but think about the times when you've been generous with somebody. You've helped them to overcome something, or you've bought them a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It makes us feel good to show kindness to other people. And I would highly encourage that as almost like it's therapeutic in many, many ways. And for me too, if I have a purpose in my life, that's so important. So my purpose is really around creating opportunity through commitment, through to people that are committed. And finally, the last thing I would say is, I think I talked about this the other day on the show, is if we can give ourselves a symbol that we can remember this by. Remember the pain, remember the good times, remember how, when you lose somebody like that, it's still good to remember back to remember back to that. And we planted a tree in Haneyville, and I talked to my mom, planted a tree for my mom, symbolizing my mom. And I go out and talk to my mom all the time. Every time I go out there every night. I haven't moved in yet. We will hopefully this summer. But having that tree gives me, it reminds me, and it helps me to cope with that tragedy that was even several years ago. And sometimes it's sad to reflect back, but many times it's hopeful. And I think back all the lessons and the things that my mom taught me. And most of that is to look within yourself, because everybody has gifts. I was a C student. My brothers and sisters were all straight A's. I was not gifted in the same ways that they were. So, but she made me feel like I was, and she made me recognize that I have gifts, and everybody does. That's the thing. And so I think back to the lessons I learned. So anyway, to all of you out there that are maybe going through a tragedy today or in process of recovering, even if it was a couple of years ago, it's these things, we don't recover right away. Anybody that's doing that, and to all you, I just wish you some hope, and you can get through it. And to all you out there fighting the good fight for our freedom, for our security, and our way of life, to all of you out there here at the Haney Biz, here at the Mark Haney Show, here at the Growth Factory, we're never above you. We're never below you. We're always by your side.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.